If you're doing any type of research or academic work, or even working on your hobbies, it's not uncommon to have books, academic journals, different papers and such that are in physical format, and you'd like to convert those to be in PDF format. Or maybe you're doing a demonstration in class and you have an electronic device like this Raspberry Pi, and you want to be able to project this onto the screen so that everybody can get a close-up view of what you're doing. Or maybe you have a document, you want to share it up on the screen and work on it together with your class. There are so many different reasons why you might want to be able to scan or create document or object visualizations in order to teach and learn and be more effective. Now, moving content from physical to digital is something that we've done for many years using scanners. And I've used some flatbed scanners. I still have an HP high-end flatbed scanner that I use for specific purposes, really around photography and when I need extremely high resolution on some things that I'm scanning. But when it comes to book scanning for research, getting things from the physical into the digital, I use these book scanners. And when it comes to visualizing things up on a screen when I'm teaching, either in class or remotely, then I will use a Visulizer, and I'll talk about the difference in those things. So you'll notice that I have three CZUR devices in front of me, CZUR. And the reason I have three is that they all serve different purposes. And full disclosure, CZUR sent these to me a few years ago. I did some videos on them back in the day. But this is an updated video. These are the things that I've been using for 2-3 years now, and I really do like them. This is not a sponsored video. I do have three devices here. This is the ET24 Pro scanner by CZUR. This here is the Shine Ultra scanner, and this here is the fancy S Pro document scanner. Now, each of them has a different purpose in my own workflow. I will use them for different things, and that's why I've kept all three of these scanners. I did have a fourth one, which is very similar in functionality or my use case to the Shine Ultra. So I had to decide which one was more applicable to the type of scanning I was doing because, three is enough. So if I take a look at these scanners, they'll each serve a different purpose. Let's take a look at all three. Okay, it looks like we're going to be joined at least for a little while by Blossom, my black cat. She was very upset that I'm standing and the desk is at its standing position, so she was meowing a lot. So I don't want anybody to think out there that there's a meowing cat that I'm ignoring. I would never ignore my little cat. So hello Blossom, hello everybody on YouTube. So let's look at these book scanners. I think the first thing that we need to realize is that they're book scanners. These are designed for a research workflow where I'm taking books, I'm taking papers, and I'm scanning them predominantly so that I can then do further work with them. And after this video, I'll create some other videos where I show you how I take them into a PDF format and then use AI to build research papers and to build different types of educational content on the scans that I do. But for now, let's look at the hardware of these three devices. Now, as you can imagine, each of these devices has a different price point. If we look at something like the ET24 Pro, this is a more high-end book scanner. You can see that it has a fixed position. It doesn't fold down. It's going to sit on a desk. It has some side lights that can snap onto the back here in order to give me some lighting options that the other ones do not have. It has a top LCD screen. If you can see that with Blossom, you've made me a one-handed YouTuber. So I can go in here, I have the screen at the top so I can see what I'm scanning. I have a little bit more control over some of the lighting. On the back here you can see that I've got an HDMI out, which means that I can directly connect this book scanner up to a monitor or a screen, so anything that I'm scanning can be projected on a screen. If I'm scanning a book, I'm going to use the software that comes with the scanners. You can download it. I'll show you that in a moment. And then we can scan a book, we can digitize that book and do quite a lot with it. This scanner is going to give me the ability to go with a little bit of a larger book. This is going to give me the ability to do a little bit more in terms of resolution. It's sort of the higher end of the models that CZUR has. Then I have probably one of my favorite little scanners that I have here. This is the Ultra Shine Pro. This one here is nice because I can have this on my desk. I can have this next to me when I'm working, and it doesn't take up a lot of desk space. Then when I'm ready to use it, I can just extend it out. And all of these come with a mat that I will use in order to place the objects on a mat so that the scanner will capture everything. This has very decent resolution. You can take a look. I'll post a link to a video where I compare this one to another model called the Aura. And this one here gives me control in terms of being able to use a foot pedal. Both this one and this one both have foot pedals, so I can rapidly scan a book with either of these book scanners. Of course, this can also be used as a document scanner, but this one here does not have the HDMI out. So this one here, when I'm scanning, or when I'm using it as a visualizer, what I will do is I'll use the software. Then the software will be shared out in a Teams or a Zoom meeting or in the classroom and showing up on the screen so that you can see exactly what is being seen by the Ultra Shine. And then I have this little guy, which is a very useful. This is the Fancy S Pro document camera. This is very, very useful because this one here is very compact. So this is one, and it comes with a little case. This one I can take with me wherever I go, so it's very portable. If, let's say I was going to a library or an archive, and I wanted to scan some documents because I'm going to be doing some research, or even if I wanted to scan some objects, you could scan them as well. This one here might be a good choice because of its portability. I might actually even use the Ultra Shine Pro because it's also fairly portable. You know, it's not unportable. I wouldn't use this unless I was leaving it permanently at the archive, but because it's a little bit harder to carry with me. So, but this nice little Fancy S will definitely allow me to do all sorts of scanning and document sharing. This one here would be the least expensive of the three. This also can serve as a webcam. So I could use this as a webcam if I'm teaching. So I could use it as a webcam, and then if I need to show something on my desk, I can then show something on my desk. So this is a little bit more multi-purposed in terms of sharing objects, in terms of acting as a webcam. It's not necessarily going to be something I'd use if I was scanning a lot of books. If I want to do a lot of book scanning, the nice thing about the Ultra Shine is that I can quickly flip through a book and it'll automatically capture the pages. We'll take a look at the software in a moment. And then definitely, if I'm going to do quite a bit of scanning, then I'm going to be looking at something like this ET24 Pro. Let's take a look at working with each of the three so that you can see some of the differences in the software. Whoa, cat went away on me. That's Blossom. She's a crazy cat. Okay, let me demonstrate each of these three models and talk about their various strengths in terms of the type of work that they can do. An important thing to note about all three of these is that in order to get a nice scan, what we want to do is put them onto a surface that has a mat. So this is the mat that comes with the ET24. You'll notice that there is a cutout in order to accommodate the base of the ET24. And then when I place this on the desk or the area that I'm working, it will actually act as a background for any books that I have. It's a black background, which is great for most every book that I'm ever going to work with. There are some things that are a little bit of a got you if I have a book cover that is also dark, and I'll show you that in the demonstration. The same type of mat comes with the Ultra Shine. So this comes with the Ultra Shine Pro. It's a little bit of a smaller mat because the size of book that the Ultra Shine can handle is a little bit smaller, but it still handles all of the normal books that I have, textbooks that I have. It can accommodate all that. And then with the Fancy S Pro, you actually have not a rolling mat, you actually have this sort of hard mat, which is going to give you the black background, and your Fancy Pro can be on there. But with the Fancy Pro, again, there's book scanning, where you're scanning documents and books, and then there's object scanning and visualizers, and that is where I tend to use the Fancy S Pro a little bit more as a visualizer and a webcam with the occasional document and book scanning. where I use the Ultra Shine Pro for a lot of book scanning. That's right next to where I'm working. And then for, I guess, more serious jobs where I'm doing quite a bit, or I have a large number of books that I want to do. I want to sit down for a session where I'm grabbing a lot and I want the higher quality. That's where the ET24 Pro comes in. So let's look at each of them and see how they work. So let's start with the Fancy S Visulizer. This is a multifunction, very portable device. It only has one connection, which is a USB Type 2 connection, so you don't need to carry a power adapter or anything like that with you. It will not come with a foot pedal or any of the things that some of the other ones do. But it's super handy. It does come with this foldable mat. Now, normally I would have the scanner in front of me like this, but I'm going to put it to the side, so you just imagine that I'm facing this direction. That comes into play when I'm working with a book. So I'm going to put the mat down, and it's quite a large mat. It has a large area to it, but what this does is provides me with contrast with the objects that I'm working with. So if I'm, for example, demonstrating the ports on this Raspberry Pi, I can put that and get really nice contrast. I'm going to show you with a book. So when I open up the device itself, there's a couple of things. First, I do have the ability to have a light with different intensities or completely turn that light off. And I'll extend it up so that I get the height, and that'll give me a nice scanning area. I could open up a book. Now remember, I'm facing this way, so I would normally be facing this way. So when I open up a book or a document, if I put that on the screen here, what I can do is I can actually twist the lens, so you can go vertical or horizontal depending on how the orientation of your document is. So in my case, I have a book here, and you can see in the software that I'm able to capture that. I'll actually go this way here, and then I'll be able to have my book in here, and you can see that this allows me to share this book in a meeting, or I could even take a scan of the book. The software allows me multiple things. I can zoom in on the book, so I can actually zoom in. I can go in and I won't go through every aspect of the software, but it is a fairly robust piece of software. There's things that I can do in terms of doing annotations, which is an extremely useful part of visualization. So if I have an object, I could use some of the annotations here. For example, I could draw a circle to highlight specific areas of an object, or if I wanted to underline certain sections of the book, I could go in and do that as well. You can change the color. You can do all sorts of things in order to annotate, and then when you're done, you can just clear off that screen as well. So this is really designed to be a visualization tool where I'm sharing information in real time, sharing objects in real time in order to demonstrate. And of course, I do have that webcam functionality as well. So if I take it, I could use it as a webcam. It even has a light on there, so I can use that as a webcam. And if the light's too bright for me, I can turn the light off. I can turn it up to different intensities. So it gives me a lot of flexibility using it as a webcam as well. A lot of times, like I say, I will use it to share different objects that I have. You can, of course, go in as well, and you could do a photograph. So I can take, let me grab another page in here. So this is a book I have on stamp collecting, a very old book on stamp collecting. And I could go in here, I could take a video, right? So you can go in and you can start recording a video, talk about what you're doing here, stop recording the video. That's saved for me in this default directory. I could go in and I could take a picture. Once again, that photo's taken. I'll just grab that photo. So I just took a photo, that goes in the directory as well. I can do things like invert the, or sort of twist the object a little bit. That can be actually a lot of fun in a classroom, especially if I have an object like this little Raspberry Pi. I can show, it flattens it out, but you can see here that that's kind of a way to add some visual appeal. I can rotate the objects, so that can be useful as well. In my case with the book, I could rotate it so the text could be up the right way. Just go back to the default there. So there's a lot of different things that I can do. It really is a tool designed to be an interactive visualizer used in a classroom environment that does have the ability to take some pictures in order to then, I can then process it beyond that. This is not really designed as a book scanner per se. I wouldn't scan an entire book with that. For that, I'd move to one of my other tools.
Okay, we're joined by cat number 2, my cat Peanut, while we do some scanning. So the other thing that I can do with the Fancy S is I can go display, that's for displaying and annotating and doing those types of things, but I can also go in and hit the scan. So when I do the scanning, it will actually capture the book that I have here, and you can see here that I have some options around scanning things like color. I can do grayscale scanning, black and white scanning. I usually just do it as automatic. One of the things that's very useful here is that this can actually be used as a QR code scanner, where it'll constantly look for QR codes, or you can use it for a barcode scanner. This is something that I find quite useful. For example, if I'm collecting or I'm cataloging books that have have barcodes on them, so they have the ISBN barcodes on the back, I can just bring them in and I can capture that barcode, which I can then use to look up something in a library database, or I can use it to put it into my reference manager. Now, this is really great for smaller jobs. I can just go in, you can see it'll detect the edges, especially because I have this black mat that's helping me determine the edges of the book, and I've got white pages on here. So I could just go in and I could press the scan button, scans these 2 pages, it'll put that into my files. I can also turn on auto scanning. So what it'll do is it'll do a scan, and then when I turn the page, so I'll just turn the page of this book, it'll automatically scan that. So it'll determine the edges and scan that. And then I just turn the page of the book, it'll determine the edges, and you can see it's scanning that. And then if I go into my files, you can actually see that it's grabbing each of these pages or page pairs that I have. It's a great way to scan maybe a document that's a few pages long. PDFs, of course, could be in the orientation of a PDF. You can modify that, but that can be pretty handy. That can be a useful way of, scanning, doing small scan jobs where you're out and about. Plus you get the webcam, can modify the lights, modify the exposure. So it is a very, very useful device. Great visualizer device. Really something that I really like to have with me in my backpack if I know that I'm going to be giving a presentation where I want to demonstrate some objects, or if I'm just going to the library and grabbing a few little documents here and there, just want to grab some PDFs, or if I want to, one thing that's really nice, of course, is if I display a PDF and then do the annotations on here. So you can I'll do a triangle, because we don't do enough triangles in this world. So I could do a little triangle in there. I don't know when you would do a triangle, but anyways. So I could go in there and I could demonstrate and highlight things in the book, present that out in Teams, whatever that case may be. The Fancy S Pro does come with a little carrying case, but I generally just carry it like this. In fact, I don't even necessarily bring the mat with me wherever I go, depending on what I'm expecting to do with it. If I'm just going to use it as a webcam, or I know that I'm going to be working on a desk that has contrast, I can actually just use it like this. So I'll just carry this with me. Now, if I want to do actual book scanning, scan entire books very quickly, or I want something that can sit on my desk and be great as a document scanner when I'm in the middle of a research workflow, whatever the case may be, then I start looking at my CZUR Shine Pro. And I've scanned a lot of books using this device. It's been something that I've used extensively, and I'm really happy with it. It has a little bit better resolution than the Fancy S Pro. It's designed more for book scanning. I can do larger books with this device here. And it has some features that allow me to be a lot faster and more efficient when I am scanning books and documents. The first thing that it comes with is we have these finger cots. And these are very interesting because when you open a book and hold it open, you can use these finger cots. It'll scan the codes on here and then remove these from your finished scan. Plus, of course, comes with a black mat. That's where I'm going to put the book down. And it also comes with a foot pedal. Now, this is of course very important because if I'm holding a book open using the 2 finger cots, then I definitely need a way to take the scan, and that's where this foot pedal comes into play. So I have a foot pedal that I can use to advance the scanning. Now, with this one here, I will open it up. So you'll see here that it does have a light which I can turn on and off. I can actually adjust the intensity of the light as well.
so you can adjust the intensity, and then you can, of course, bring the device itself onto the desk, and then you can begin the process of scanning. So usually I'll have a little bit of light depending on the book, and you can play around with that to see how it works for you. So let's scan some books with this. So I'm going to scan this small antiquarian book. This is Through the Looking Glass by Lewis Carroll. And this is a book that has been damaged. It's fairly extensively damaged. And I do not want to damage this book anymore. So maybe I want to take a scan of this book so that I can have a copy that I can refer to and reference in order to be able to go through it in the future. But I want to make sure that I have a copy, a digital copy of this book. So what I can do is with this scanner here, if you open the book, I won't need to use the finger cots because the book itself sits quite flat, so I'll put those to the side. But what I can do is I can go in to the software, I can go into scan mode, and underneath scanning it'll find the device. I'll make sure that it's extended out, and notice that it immediately finds that book and puts a box around it. Because I'm using facing pages, I can go facing pages, and then I can just put the book right into that middle line there. And then when I press the foot pedal, it'll actually take that scan, and you'll see that it will now process that scan. It takes a little bit of time to process that scan, so it'll go through and do that. And you'll see that it gives me each page as a separate page. So I can go quite quickly through the book. So I'll show you if I wanted to go page by page, I can just quickly go through the entire book. It's very, very fast at doing the scanning. And this is very useful if I have longer books that I wish to scan. You can see how quickly it was able to capture those pages. Now I'm not going to do this entire book right now. We'll set that one aside. Let me grab a book that's a little bit larger. So I'm going to grab a book that's both larger and has glossy paper. So here you can see I've got this fairly large graphic novel, and you can see here that I'm exceeding the size that this particular scanner is able to scan. So if you're dealing with very large books, you're not going to be in a situation with this scanner to be able to scan the really large books. I'll show you on the ET24 how I can do larger books with that. But if I'm using regular size books, I'll use one that's kind of this one that we've seen before. Or let me grab an academic journal here. Always have an academic journal lying around somewhere. So you can see if I have, for example, this paper-based academic journal of mine, maybe there's an article in here that I wish to have a digital copy of. Now I will say that for a lot of academic journals, digital copies are included with the academic journal. So you can go in and you can grab it. But let's say, for example, I have this. I'm not too worried about the spine, but here it's a little bit, maybe I do want to go in and I want to, use the finger cots here. So I'm just going to go in. I'll take the scan of this, and I'll just do a few pages very quickly here. So we'll be able to do that, and then I'll show you how the finger cots are taken out of the scan. So I'll just do a few pages there. It's how quick I can go through those pages. And then if I go into the pages here, let me grab one that has a table in here. So we'll open this up in the software just by double clicking, and then we'll be able to preview it. So let me grab that there. I thought I'd double click it. Yeah, there we go. So we go in here and you can see, let's just maximize this a little bit so we can see it a little larger. And then what we will do is we will also zoom in. So you can see I'm getting, it's not going to be absolutely super high fidelity when I go up to 250, 300% here. But you can see that this is absolutely sufficient for what I'm doing in terms of being able to read this digitally and being able to do all sorts of things with this document. Actually, for example, I can then go in and I can do things like grab those last few pages that I did from the academic journal, and I can go in and export those to Word, Excel if appropriate, export them out as a PDF or even a searchable PDF. It'll do optical character recognition on here, and you can do things like remove handwriting, watermark. There's a lot of features in here. If you are interested, comment down below if you'd like me to see me go into book scanning in super detail where I go through the software completely. But what I'll show you here is that if I go into a searchable PDF, I can go in and choose my language. In my case, it's English, a PDF, go high quality, do auto adjustment in here, confirm my choice. So the Fancy S Pro is our portable device for webcam, casual scanning, document here and there, and mostly visualizing and sharing the things we do. And our Ultra Shine Pro is that desktop unit. I use that a lot for scanning, especially if I have a book that I want to quickly scan into PDF format so I can read it on the go, or if I'm doing research. For the real high quality scanning, I want to look at something like the ET Pro. Now, this device here is a little bit more robust. It has better resolution. It has some features that allow me to scan larger documents. It does allow me to work with lighting a little bit better, and it is a great unit. It is important to note, though, that with all of these book scanners, all of these document visualizers, they fit a great workflow when it comes to research. If you need extraordinarily high fidelity scans, then you need to look at scanners that are maybe tens of thousands of dollars. When I worked at museums, if we needed something that was doing high-end archival work, then we needed to ensure that we had very, very high-end scanners. If you want to do something that's pretty high-end, you're still talking a few $1,000s for a really good scanner. Even the flatbed scanner that I have was about $1,600, $2,000. And that gave you, but then you have to destroy the book because you have to cut the binding if you want to do single pages. It's very hard to scan otherwise. So these are book scanners, and this is an excellent book scanner. With the ET24 Pro, you do have to provide power. So it does require power into the device. You'll have a USB connection to the computer, which is where you'll run your software. Then you have the foot pedal, or you also have the option with this one of using a hand clicker. So you can use a little hand clicker if you'd like. You can connect that in instead. However, it does come with the finger cots, so chances are if you're holding a book open, you'll definitely want to use the foot pedals as opposed to the finger or the hand cot. But this is really good. I use this when I'm scanning things like stamps for building stamp catalogs and such. You put everything where you want it, click it, move things around, click it. It's very, very useful. And then this also comes with HDMI out. So I can use this to project onto a screen, an HDMI monitor. That can be very, very useful if you want to have a large monitor near you so you can see exactly what you're scanning. But it also comes with an LCD screen at the top so you can see what you're scanning when you open the software. Let's take a look at doing some scanning with the ET24 Pro. So with the ET24 Pro, there's a few features. First of all, we have some mid lights that allow me to scan across the document and provide some more lighting. I have lighting at the top, which is with adjustable levels, so I can really dial in the level of light that I have on an object. And I'll show you with this book how that comes into play, as well as with a book that has a bit glossier paper. You'll notice also on the top of this particular device, I do have an LCD screen. Let me just pop in. You can see I've got power on here. I've got the, shows me that I've got the microphone on. So you can actually use a microphone on here. You can take photos in here. You can scan in and out. In this case here, I do have this one going out to HDMI. Because it's going out to HDMI, if I remove the HDMI, you'll see that I now get the screen at the top. So you won't get the screen at the top and HDMI, it's one or the other. And if I go in, I can zoom in here with this, so you can see that you're able to actually zoom in, zoom out once we do the scan. So if I take a look here with this book here, and we'll go into the software, so I'll do a scan here, and I can do it as a visualizer or scanner. I'm doing the book scanners as book scanners, but they can of course be used as visualizers. Now notice here when I go to a single page here, this book here has a lot of light on it. So what I might want to do is reduce the amount of light. It's going to search for the book cover, but you'll also notice that the book cover here is very, it's a dark blue cover on a black background. So what I might want to do is instead go to a manual selection here. You'll notice that I was doing this a little bit earlier. I can just close those manual selections. I can choose up to 2 regions. So I'll just choose the book cover here. And then what I can do is I can press my foot plate and take a scan of that cover in a tone that I like. Now I can, of course, change the tone here, change the lighting up if I want to look for a little bit of a different tone to it. So you can see that I can play around with the lighting a little bit. There are times where if I'm, like right now I'm in my studio where I've got some lights around me, but in natural light, you can play around with it and really make sure that you're getting the right coloring there for your book. I'm going to go into my facing pages here now and just open up the book and put it into facing pages here. And now this book sits quite flat, so I don't necessarily need the finger cots, but just to show you how quickly I can scan with this particular scanner, I have gone in here and I have scanned entire books in a very short period of time. If I want to take, say, a chapter with me to read on as a PDF on the way, you can see how quickly I'm able to just go in and scan, and all of the images that are captured with these finger cots, the finger cots are removed, but you can see just how quickly I'm able to go through and scan many, many pages of this book. I do find that I like to look over at the software to ensure that I'm getting good scans, so it'll catch up with me. I can go very fast, but I limit my speed to the speed to see what's happening on the actual scan itself. There are going to be cases where if I bump the book or something, you might get a weird scan every so often is what I'm saying. So you want to make sure that you're watching for that. So that's great. Let's take a look at that larger book that I wasn't able to scan with my, my Shine Ultra. And let's take a look at using the ET24 to scan it. So now notice immediately that I have more room. So it's a black cover up here. It's pretty dark cover here. And the first thing you'll notice is I have some shine on here because this has a high gloss cover. So what I'm going to do is take off my overhead lights and that'll get rid of that shine. I'm going to go into a flat single. It's not going to detect it because of the edges. Well, it did actually a good job of detecting it. So I might just take that scan there. A lot of times with a book like this that has dark edges on a dark background, there you go, you can see with my hands it made a difference. I will probably not necessarily scan this as an auto detect. I'll go in and do a manual selection and select it. So if I double click on it, you can see here, I'm getting good fidelity in here for the artwork in here. Again, this is going to be absolutely good for reading this book, or if I want to do research. Now, doing research on my comic book here, but you get the idea. So if I go facing pages, this can be very helpful. Now, at this point, I have none of the lights on from the scanner. This is just going and scanning these pages without any additional light, and that can be quite useful if I have a book with high gloss. Now, the other thing here is you can see that this page kind of sits a little bit odd. With something like this, I would probably, again, do a manual selection because all I want is this one page here. I don't want the other page. So what I can do is I can fold the book if I want, but I can go in, I can choose a manual selection, I can get rid of the existing manual selection, line up the page the way that I would like it, right? So I can lie that in there. Now I'll show you, if I use the finger cot in this case, it will actually not remove the finger cot. The finger cot is designed to work with the double page scanning. So I'm just going to go in, and because I know that this page is potentially problematic, I'm going to just grab that page by itself. So you can see here, and it is a dark page in terms of artwork anyways. So if I go in here, and you can see if I scroll in, it's a pretty dark page. The fidelity here could be improved. So let's try putting a light on there. Actually, that's going to be a little nicer. So I'll go in here. Again, you just have to play around a little bit with the lighting to make sure that you're getting the highlights and such that you're looking for. Yeah, that's going to be a much better page. The Incredible Hulk's coming to get you, right? So I don't know why I chose the Incredible Hulk, but you can see here now as I go through, depending on what I'd like to scan, I can then start using the finger cots. It's important to get them on the right pages. With something like this book here though, notice that the art comes right up to the edge. So if I go into, let's go into our facing page. So it breaks the book. through the spine. You have the guide in there to break the book through the spine. But it will be important to note that, well, I'll show you. If I grab this here, this is going to be a problem for me. So I might want to tuck that in, and then I can hold down the finger cot. I try my very best to go right to the edges as much as I can, because when I do a scan of an art book like this, you'll notice that this page here is curved, and you'll notice this page is nice and flat. So let's go to the curved page first, and you'll notice that it does flatten it out. So it did flatten out that page, so it did a fairly good job flattening that out. Certainly good enough for reading, certainly good enough for doing my research and such. And notice here, it may be very hard to see, but I actually have the finger caught, and if I look down this page here, you'll see an area where you might get just a little bit of fading in there. It's right here. And if I go into the other page that I had the finger caught with, remember that the art came right up to the edge. There you go. So you can see here that it's not going to do as good of a job if I'm dealing with an art book that has art right up to the edge. But that's not really what this is intended for. It's not really intended as a comic book scanning device, although, you know, I use it for that a fair amount. Because, you know, but then again, I have the original comic, and I'm going to read this. You know, I'm going to keep the original comic. This is just, you know, if I want to scan in maybe a couple dozen pages to put on a PDF reader, have it on my iPad just while I'm out and about, maybe doing commuting or something. I just want to go in and I want to take some of these pages with me. In fact, it'll actually sit nice and flat by itself. So I'll just go in, flip through the pages here, and holding them in place. And this will just give me something to read on the bus. You know, that's the goal here. If I'm doing research papers, if I'm doing black and white books, or if I'm doing books with diagrams and such, that's going to be just fine. I don't need to worry terribly about, you know, having super high fidelity prints, because I'm using them for research. I'm using them for work. So you see, it's good though. I can go in there and you can get really nice, you know, that's pretty good resolution with the ET24 larger size book. That's going to give me what I need in terms of enjoying the reading experience or the research experience, as it may be. So the ET24 is going to give me that higher fidelity. It's going to give me the ability to do larger texts, and it's going to have a few features that the other two do not. There are many choices that you have when it comes to using different book scanners and visualizers, and the ones from CZUR are a great choice. I really do like them. Like I say, I use all three of the ones I've shown you in this video for different purposes. Comment down below if you're using a book scanner. Are you using one of the CZUR ones? I'll put links to all of them down below if you want to look for one for yourself as well. And if you have any questions, pop them down in the comments, and stay tuned for some more videos where I talk about incorporating them into our workflow. Thank you very much for watching, and we'll see you in the next video.